And welcome back to Sullivan's Backstage Pass. I'm here with Terry and Music Millennium. This place is quite a place, Terry. This is like one of the reasons I started this podcast, because we need places like this to stay in our community. And it's one of the things that I love about a place like this is because when you come through the door, you know it's customer first and not shareholder first.
We want to create a customer experience. I'm a music fan first, and
Go ahead and just pull that microphone a little bit closer to you if you would. There, perfect.
I'm a music fan first, and uh, I think from that perspective, what would customers like to have in the store? What would enhance their experience of coming to the store? And so we try to make it uh, an experience for people. We have a lot of live music in the store. We have a lot of listening events for new albums that are coming out. We have events throughout the year, like Bring Your Kids to Music Millennium Day. And upcoming in August 8th, we'll have our Customer Appreciation Barbecue in the back parking lot with 7 live bands and free food.
How cool is that? So take me through the how you came to be the owner of such an amazing establishment, because you've been at this for a while now, right?
Yeah, I didn't grow up listening to the radio or to records. And when I was 16, I got a motorcycle. And 7, 8 months later, I decided in the Pacific Northwest in the rain, sleet, and snow, motorcycle was not a practical thing. So I got a car, and the car had a radio in it, and that radio changed my life. I had been involved in music. I played clarinet. I was going to go to college on music scholarships. Um, but I just wasn't into what was happening out there in recorded music. And that radio station was K-Van, um, based in Vancouver. Well, supposedly based in Vancouver, but actually based in Portland until the FCC came out to visit and found out, oh, you're not in Vancouver, you're in Portland, you're not supposed to be doing this. But it was an underground AM station. It's called the Daytimer. It went on the air when the sun went up and it went off the air when the sun went down. So the hours of operation changed throughout the year as it got lighter in the morning and lighter at night, or darker in the morning and darker at night. And the couple months later, I heard an ad for one of the artists I heard on the radio, which was Leon Russell and the Shelter People. And I go, I'm going to go buy tickets to that show. And I went, and it was like a religious experience. It Leon had about a 10, 12 piece band with backup singers, horn players. He was this wild man with long blonde hair playing piano. Every once in a while, he'd jump up on the piano and grab a guitar and start playing guitar. And 2 weeks later, I applied for a job in a record store at a new mall that was going to go in at Jansen Beach. And I became a kid in a candy store. And one of the girls there that I actually was going out with her, um, one night she says, I got a surprise for you. And I was thinking something different, but she took me to Music Millennium. And it was quite a fascinating experience. At that time, it was only in about 40% of the building. In the space that we are right here and to the east. And half the store was domestic and half the store was import. And the import section just got me incredibly fascinated because we didn't have all these imports over where I worked. Don McLeod, the original owner, he went to Europe and set up accounts over there. He felt American vinyl was inferior to European vinyl and Japanese vinyl. They used 100% virgin vinyl, and American record companies were using recycled vinyl. So You could find a Who section on one side of the store, and you could find a Who section on the other side of the store. Imports were usually a buck more at that time, sometimes two, but the sound quality was great. At the same time, while I was in Europe, there was all this music coming out over there that wasn't being released in the United States, and he was bringing in a lot of that stuff. So there was a lot of, especially experimental rock bands, British folk rock music, things like that. That wasn't being released in the United States, and it gave me a great opportunity to try that stuff out. So I became a music Millennium shopper on a regular basis. And in 84, DJ Sound City, the place I was working for, they sold the company. And I went to work for the new owners for about 5 months and realized that they cared about stereos more than the music.
Mm.
I said, I don't have the right inventory in the store. And they would go, you got plenty of those. And they looked at music as, oh, like a shoe store. Yeah. Sell them some shoes and then sell them some shoe polish. Sell them a stereo, sell them some of those. Those is what they call them. And so I gave them a couple months' notice and said, you guys treat me well, but this isn't the place for me. And I started looking for jobs elsewhere, not in our industry. And one day, this guy from Seattle at RCA Distribution called me up and goes, hey, you know Don McLeod? I go, the guy that used to own Music Millennium? He goes, yeah, he's coming back. He's going to take over the company and try to bring it back from the dead. Uh, Don and Lorene McLeod and Danny and Patty Lissy were the original owners in 69. And in 79, the company was sold to a middle ownership. And in 84, they were going to shut it down, file bankruptcy. That was going to be the end. And Don, who had been up in Amboy, Washington on 100 acres, he built a fairy tale cottage, fish pond, put in nut trees. Uh, he didn't want to see his baby go, so he assumed $500,000 in debt. But he got this building and what was left of the inventory, which was not much. And that was what was left of the inventory of 4 stores because the middle ownership had
Whoa.
expanded from 2 stores, one over on Northwest 21st next to Cinema 21 and this. And so I came to work for him. We subleased 2 of those stores um, and tried to make a go at going forward. Um, Nobody had sold Millennium any product for a year. So um, we
Can I
had,
pause you there for a moment? Because as I want to let that sink in, folks, somebody bought a record store and then didn't get any inventory for a year.
yeah, they hadn't been paying their bills. And so all the suppliers just cut them off from the ability to buy. And so there was leftover inventory in here, but it wasn't very good. You weren't going to be able to come in and find Beatles, Grateful Dead, uh, Talking Heads, things of that nature. Uh, what was left was a lot of import product that nobody cared about um, at the time. So we had to start from scratch. Don had a good reputation from his 10 years in the business. I had a good reputation from where I was at. Um, and we slowly talked the suppliers into giving us a little bit of credit line, paying back the debt. And in 3 years, we actually paid off the debt and then went forward.
And one of the things that I love about that sort of origin story is that there is that sense of community. And the everybody that I speak to in the music industry has heard of this place. And everybody that I talk to that is a musician talks about fond memories and experiences of when they first walk in here, right? Because when you walk in the door and you look up and you see that picture of the moon and you see the USS Enterprise on the top and like all of the attention to detail, you're just like stepping into this warm place that is inviting, but you can feel the music memory here. Because I'm a firm believer that music has memory. And when you have a place like this, when you invite music in, it sort of seeps into the walls.
What's amazing is we'll get customers that walk in that haven't been in here for 30 or 40 years, and they'll kind of look around and go, it's just like I remember. It's not, but this building has a lot of character in it. You walk through the door, you smell some incense in the air. Uh, there, it takes you back to those old senses of when you walked in the store back in the 70s or 80s.
And so when you took it over in 84 and you sort of had this vision, like, did you have an idea that it was going to turn into this whole building?
Oh man, no. At at that point in time, we were just trying to bring it back from the dead. That was our main uh, objective. Because if we couldn't bring it back from the dead, it wasn't going to go forward. It would have ended at 15 years, and here we are at 57 years. Um, we Don was a big music fan. I was a big music fan. And the staff, for the most part, were a big music fan. And back to the community thing you were talking about, there was a certain amount of people in Portland that came and supported this store as we worked our way back, um, due to great times they had in the store in the past and great memories. Uh, we've been very fortunate that the community has supported us in this way. And one of the things I told Dawn when I got here, I go, the community supports this store. We got to support the community. So I got very involved in a lot of music activities in the community. Um, it was part of Music Millennium giving back to the community for what the community did for them.
And I like the fact that it was giving back to the community just to give back to the community, right? Because there's a difference when you have an organization that tries to pretend to give back to the community because they're expecting money in return. But I sense from everything that you put out there that your focus and commitment is just to return joy to the community.
Uh,
And that's different.
yeah. And, it's one of those situations. There's been so many different musical organizations and musical events in town that have happened over the years. And, a lot of them couldn't get off the ground unless there was somebody like us raising our hand and going, hey, we'll be the sponsor of this. We'll help make this happen. And it's not like we have to continue that with that particular event or anything. But we have stayed very active. We were involved in the very first Waterfront Blues Festival. It was called the Rose City Blues Festival back then. In fact, my claim to fame that year was walking the only national artist to the stage, which was John Lee Hooker. Quite an honor, actually. And so we've been involved with that and the Cascade Blues Association, the PDX Jazz Fest. I was I was on the board for a while, and I'm the chairman of the programming committee. Organ Music Hall of Fame. Uh, for a few years, there was people in town trying to get me to do some kind of Hall of Fame project, and I said I got too many things on my plate. I'm on too many boards, too many things. I don't have enough time to put into it. And about 3 years into getting prodded to do it, I got a weak moment and goes, okay, I'm going to do this. Um, but one of the factors that I wanted in there was that it was more than a Hall of Fame. So we added an educational factor to the organization. And in our original charter, most of our focus was going to be on raising money for music scholarships and doing music education in schools, and especially in schools that didn't have music programs. So we go into a lot of K through 8 schools, not only in Portland, but around the state of Oregon, trying to expose kids to music.
And I love that so much because, a lot of my circles is in the disability advocacy realm, right? So, as somebody who's autistic, I have a real passion towards supporting people with disabilities.
That's a
And
great thing.
and one of the things that I highly recommend to parents with children with disabilities is either theater and music. Because what I have found, and correct me if I'm wrong, music is one of those universal things that welcomes everybody. They don't care about your background. They don't care about this. They don't care about that. If you're there to listen and enjoy the music, that's all they need to entry.
No, music transcends everything. It's not about, your political feelings, your religious beliefs, um, any of the things that you believe in. It, people walk through that door, they hear something on the overhead, and they just go, "Wow, that's great. What is this?"
And one of the things too that I would like your opinion on, um, because it's one of the reasons that I like a store like this is because you can come here with an open mind and ask the person behind the counter, I want to try something new. What do you recommend? Because like I really to my core believe that there's no such thing as bad music. It's just music you might like or might not like.
There is some bad music.
Okay.
I will say that. But yes, I do agree with you. There's so much music out there, and every everybody has different taste, and there's something for everybody out there. You know, uh, I used to tell employees, who might turn their nose up at certain artists, that, hey, it's great music, even if you don't like it. Um, if the customer's into it, if a customer comes in and goes, "Hey, what's a good Barry Manilow?" and you're not a Barry Manilow fan, turn them on to what is that Barry Manilow album out there that everybody gravitates to.
And it's that sort of knowledge base that sort of like I always think of it as like if you want to work at a music store, you kind of have to be passionate about music, right?
Oh, you definitely do. Um, I look for, we get a lot of young people applying for jobs these days because kids are really getting into vinyl and CDs these days. And um, I look for those people that you can feel they're hungry to want to learn more. Uh, I don't think we have anybody in this store that knows everything about music, but collectively, from you walk through the door, you walk into a staff member and ask them about something. If they don't know what it is, they're going to point you in the direction of one of the staff members that's going to be more of an expertise in that area. But we try to educate all the employees so they know what are the best records? What are those classic records that people need to have, whether they're country, jazz, classical, rock, soul, hip hop?
And what is it about vinyl that you love so much?
To me, vinyl has always been the best format for music. It has a warmer feel and sound to it. There's more of an experience with vinyl. Uh, you buy a vinyl album, one of the things that might have captured you in even picking up that record in the first place is album covers. There was a lot of time put into album covers, especially in the first wave of vinyl. And, I can remember walking into Music Millennium and seeing this King Crimson record up on the wall with this giant illustration with its mouth open and these eyes bugging out, and it was like, wow, what's that? And you immediately pick it off the shelf, take a look at it. Uh, my first year working in a record store, I was still living at home, and I got out of school so at noon, so I could work 40 hours a week, and all my money went to records. And because I didn't own any records for the most part, I bought over 600 records that year. And, you know, I would say half of those were from just, wow, that's a great album cover. And you'd bring a record down and you could look at the back and you could see the guest artists, the producer, the engineers and stuff. And after a while, uh, these names were in your head and goes, oh, I know that artist. Um, one of my favorite records is Ashes is Burning by a band called Renaissance. And I can remember the second Christmas I was working in the record store. After Christmas, I pulled returns and took the dead stock and sent it back to the manufacturer for credit. And there was this record, Renaissance Ashes Burning. And I go, I got to listen to this record because on the back, it, it, it had guest artist Andy Powell. And Andy Powell played guitar in one of my favorite bands, which was Wishbone Ash. And I go, I got to hear this. And I opened that thing up and I just like, this record's magic. And that band became a big part of my life.
I appreciate that story in many ways. It's sort of similar to my introduction into music, because music was not a big thing in my family. And I remember the first job I got was McDonald's, and the first purchase, I don't know why, was a CD player. And I didn't know what music was. And so I picked this album off of the shelf. It was a black, Metallica black. I picked it just because the album was black. And I remember to this day, the first time I heard it, I hated it because I didn't understand it. But then I listened to it again and I listened to it again. And about the fifth time I listened to it, I started to understand that you have to tie emotion to the record, and that the emotions that I was feeling were supposed to happen because of the music. And that changed the trajectory of my life and a passion towards music, because I finally understand this sort of missing piece, that if you're going through a hard time, there's a song for that. If you're
Yeah.
going through a good time, there's a song for that too. And so music is that missing emotional piece in people's lives that you can rely on even when you're by yourself. And so, like, over the years, like, what keeps you going in a place like this, right? Because yeah, it's one of those things where this is a passion project. Like, yeah, we want to make money. At the same time, I can tell because of everything you do, this is much more of a passion project of your life than profit being the single motivator.
Music is the single thing that drives me every single day of my life. And I mean, every week there's new albums coming out. Um, I'm always looking for the next cool thing. Uh, I'll come down on Friday morning, which is release day, grab some of the records that we've opened up to play in the store on new releases, and go up in the office and listen to them. And you know that I discover new things all the time. I mean, I know a lot about music, but every day I'm learning something else about music. And, you know, from a magazine, from a customer, from a fellow employee, uh, getting involved in a conversation and somebody brings up something. What was that? I don't know about that artist. I need to listen to that.
And it's kind of like the similar way that I got tuned into Sia, because that's not really my genre. But then when I first heard that song, Courage to
Oh
Change,
yeah.
I was like, Okay, this explains me in my life because you never know when that new music that you hear like is going to be like, "Oh, I need to listen to this over and over again." Like, how do you stop yourself from listening to the same album 17 times?
I I've been there before. I can remember uh, when Lou Reed's Berlin came out, and I got obsessed with that record. And it's a very dark messaged record. Um, and I found myself going home every night, turning down the lights and listening to this record. And I mean, at the end of that month, and I must have listened to it every night that month, I almost had to slap myself in the face because, oh, you need to get away from this record. We need to go on to something else. Um, but there's records like that that just really affect you. And there's records like you were talking about before, like the Metallica, uh, where you hear it the first time, it doesn't hit you. And then all of a sudden you hear it, might be walking through the store and goes, wow, that sounds really good. Oh, that's that record I was listening to a couple weeks ago. And um, sometimes it takes a few times.
And I always stress upon people, like, if you do buy an album and you listen to it and you don't get it the first time, give it a listen like 3 times. And after the third time, if you don't get it, then move on to something else.
Yeah, I wish some radio stations over the years would have done that.
Right?
Radio stations, especially top 40 back in the 60s and 70s, they would play 10, 15 seconds of the opening of a track. If it didn't hit them, next.
Yeah. Which is such a shame because it's so limiting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
some records, they're not going to come and hit you over the head with a sledgehammer right away. Some of them, you have to listen to the whole album to go, wow, that was a great experience I just heard.
And that's another thing that I tell people too, right? So I hate the fact that we are going into this sort of single based culture of music because what I used to love is you get an album, and I'm the kind of person, like, when I buy an album, I pay homage and respect to the artist, and I listen to the full album from start to finish because I feel like they have put all of this energy, they want to paint a particular story, it ebbs and flows. They have this vision of what the piece was supposed to look like in whole. But if we just focus on a single, you miss out on this whole story piece. And my fear is that with music moving forward, we're going away from that album experience. And it kind of saddens me in a way.
I think it's coming back a little bit
I hope
right now.
so.
Um, and one of the great things is that, well, when Napster came along, um, a lot of people quit coming to record stores, and especially the youth culture. And um, kids have always been the backbone of the record business. While they're going to school and growing up, they were listening to the radios in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and coming in and getting things that, was part of their life. And when kids quit coming in the record store, our audience started shrinking because we weren't getting any new customers, and our older customers were either downsizing or passing away. So our audience was getting really small. And in recent years, kids have been gravitating back to the record store. And COVID was a big factor in this. Right before COVID, those few years before that, we started seeing few kids coming into the store and buying vinyl. And that was really exciting. And during COVID, families were staying together. And, they couldn't go visit their friends and stuff. So they were hanging out with their parents and their grandparents. And parents and grandparents started to become really cool because, oh, you got a record player in the basement. Oh, you got a couple boxes of records in the basement. Can we go through those? And so there was a bonding with music among the kids, the parents, and the grandparents. And one of the most fascinating things about right now is these kids are buying contemporary music, but they're also buying records from 40 or 50 years ago. And we'll see kids come out on a sidewalk sale and buying records because of the cover. They'll buy a $2, $3, $4 used record in the sale bin because the cover looks cool. And it could be a blues record, it could be a classical record, um, but they're taking it home and they're giving it a try. Uh, Previous to that, when they were just streaming and listening to downloads, they were mostly listening to a certain sound. Um, oh, I like contemporary hip hop, and that's what I'm going to listen to, or I like contemporary dance music. I'm just a hyper pop kid. Um,
So, and one of the things that I would like to talk a little bit about is what I call the barrier to entry, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions that you need a lot of money to start getting into vinyl records. Can you put that myth to bed?
well, I will say new vinyl is quite expensive these days, um, but you can buy plenty of used vinyl for cheap. Um, you're going to find 5, 6, 7, 8, $9 records in the store on a regular basis. Uh, so it's not super expensive to get into the vinyl thing. Now, what we're seeing lately is because new vinyl is fairly expensive, um, is that a lot of kids are getting into CDs again. CDs are having a massive comeback these last few years, and they, they have a certain nostalgic quality to them. Um, maybe maybe they turned 16 and got a car that still has a CD player in it, and they got to go get some things to try out. Maybe they got their parents' CD player out of the basement, um, and they're coming in and they love jewel boxes. They don't like digipacks. They
Interesting.
they like jewel boxes. And I'll see kids come in a pack of 4 or 5, disperse in the store, go through the used CDs, the new CDs, and come up to the counter and buy them. And CDs sound pretty good, and they are a lot cheaper than records. And a lot of these kids, they want ownership in the bands they really like. Streaming is their radio. They listen to streaming, and if they really like something, they want to own it, and so they come down and support that artist.
And the thing that I think I was also playing into that is like more and more streaming now, you got to deal with the commercials. And so if you want, like, if you're really passionate, you want to listen to a full album, you don't want to have to break that album for a commercial because it kind of breaks the flow of the experience. And so like, and the other thing too is like, I know a lot of people that want to go down the path of making sure they have the music that they want. And if they're in a remote location and you're partying at the beach, for example, and you may not have access to streaming, having that sort of physical thing that you can use to sort of have music it just makes things better.
And they're finding that a lot of things that were on streaming aren't necessarily on streaming right now because they can't always go back to go. So owning a copy of it um, is a safe way for them to know that they're always going to be able to gravitate towards that title in the future.
And that's one of those pain points for me. And I say pain point because I used to have this, and we sort of talked about this before I came on air. I used to have this album Salival by Tool, and it had a few renditions that you can't find anywhere else. It's not streaming. You can't find those songs online anywhere. And I downloaded it to my computer, and then one song came corrupted and I didn't have the CD anymore. And so now I have this song that I've been dying to hear for a decade, but you can't find that album anymore. And so sometimes, like, I implore people to come down and check out the record store and the CDs here because some of this stuff isn't going to be on streaming, especially like on the B sides or on the hard cut. And so, like places like this, you can come down and find music that you're not going to find anywhere else.
Oh, yeah. And the great thing about going to a record store versus, you know, people buying music online is you never know what you're going to run into. You start going through the bin and you go, oh, I didn't know that was here. Uh, oh, I found a copy of something I'm looking for the last 15 years. There it is. I'm grabbing it. Um, when you go online, you're usually going to buy a specific thing. You're not browsing in most cases. It's not easy to shop online like that. And the other thing, especially with vinyl, when you go down to the store and you pick up your copy, you can make sure it doesn't have any dings or dents in the cover. If it's used, you can look at the quality of it and make the grading in your head the way you see it instead of the way somebody else sees it.
And take me through like so how can you tell when you pick up a vinyl? What are some of the things that you're looking for that will suggest that it's going to play like still amazingly or still like awesome?
Well, you take the record out of the sleeve and you inspect it on both sides. There's no scratches. Usually it's going to be a good sounding record. Um, some records can have some signs of surface wear and still play completely perfect. Um, when you move that record in and out of the jacket, in and out of the jacket a whole bunch of times, there's going to be a certain amount of things that could possibly happen to it. You know, part of the record experience um, is, going home, taking the record out of the jacket. The great thing about vinyl is I think more people treat it as art than any other format of music. Um, you got to take care of it well for it to continue to sound good. So you take it out of the sleeve, you carefully put it on the turntable, you get your tone arm, put it down, go back to your seat, start listening to it. And in many cases, you got that album cover in your lap. You're reading credits as you're listening to the music. You get really involved with the whole experience. Uh, I found when music went to CD that I read the liner notes a lot less often. Um, the text was smaller and it just didn't have that same kind of impact with the album cover. Instead of a 12 by 12, you had a 5-inch by 5-inch surface, and it didn't have that same kind of impact. Um, so the vinyl experience is a really great experience for exploring music.
And talk me through like how to best store your records, because something that I used to see a lot is like people would store their records in a place that wasn't really appropriate, and then they came back to listen to them, and then oh, these are no longer playable because I did this or I put it there. So how should people store their vinyl so that they know that it's not going to be damaged?
Well, it should be in a climate controlled environment. Um, you know, uh, a lot of people will store records in garages and out in the shed and things like that. And, if there's any chance of any of the elements of weather getting at them, moisture, um, cold, heat, you know, heat's not good for records. Do not leave your records in the back window during this summer. Um, and, store them upright. Um, And if you want to keep the covers in good order, you can get nice plastic sleeves. If you take the shrink wrap off, uh, you can put a nice plastic sleeve on it, and it will help preserve the quality of the cover. When people come in to buy used records, a lot of people are looking for quality records, but they're also looking for the quality of the cover too. Um, and some people may own a record and they see another copy of it, it goes, I got to get that. That's a better cover than the one I got at home, or that's a better copy of the vinyl than I have at home.
And what about like those uber rare records? Right? Are those records out there that like go for like $1,000 per vinyl because you can't find it anywhere else?
There's a lot more of those now than there has been in the past. Uh, because with the renaissance of vinyl and all the people that are interested in vinyl now, there's a bigger demand and more people looking for particular records. So records that, 20 years ago might have been a $10 record could be a $50 record today. Uh, we used to get so many Fleetwood Mac rumors, used copies of vinyl when nobody cared about vinyl that we even turned some away. And there's no way we would turn them away today. Um, that particular record is one of our biggest selling catalog items as a new record in the store. And, people tell me that they'll be in a record store in LA and see a used copy of Rumors from back in the 70s, and it might be going for $75. Can we take a break?
Yeah. Mhm. We'll be
I,
right back,
I,
folks. Mhm.
I have a hearing aid and my battery just went dead. All good.
And we're back, folks. Here's something I'm curious about, right? Because like I'm just sitting here with you right now, and I'm looking at the corner of my eye, and like, oh wait, when's the last time I've seen Gumby on the walls? So I love that it's not just music. You have like gifts and stuff like that too, and I think that's something that people tend to forget.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in the store from uh that enhance this place. Uh, there's a lot of things like Gumby and stuff from my childhood that you'll find in the store, and there's like a yodeling pickle over there. Over there you can have a little contraption where you hit it and it makes frog sounds. Or you can get one of those that make audience sounds. So you can be in your house and think you have an audience, say something, get a great response.
So what goes through the thought process of what you decide to put up on the walls or not?
uh, well, one thing we always did is music is our foremost uh, item in the store. Um, we are a record store. So when we added all these other things, it had to be not due to sacrificing space for music. We had to find a place for it. So you'll see every nook and cranny in this store that's open will have something there, whether it's a prayer candle with RuPaul on it, um, you know, socks with slogans on it and aliens on them, bendable toys, tops. Uh, you'll see a lot of nostalgia things in the store too, including nostalgia candy. Uh, we have a lot of candy here that I've searched out around the country uh, to bring in the store that's from people's past. And I run into people in public that come in here. They go, "Oh, I love the fact you have long boys in the store." And were those even popular candy in the Northwest when you were a kid? And I go, no, but they were on the East Coast, and there's a lot of people from the East Coast that live here these days, and they love them.
And you also have like a lot of artists and local art on the walls as well.
Yeah, we try to support local artists, both musically and from just an artist's point too. Um, we've always been really supportive of local artists, try to help them any way we can. Um, One of the things we did in 1989, I was looking for something to do for the 20th anniversary, and I was standing down in the main body of the store with the then majority owner, Don McLeod, and I go, well, what are we going to do for the 20th anniversary? He goes, well, what do you got in mind? And I go, how about if we do 20 straight days of live music in the store? And we had a few artists play in the store in the aisles and stuff over the years, but we really hadn't had anything serious. And I pointed up at the mezzanine and I go, we could do it right up there and everybody could be down below. And he goes, that could work. So we looked into renting a sound system for 20 days and ended up buying it, and goes, you never know that some national act might come through and we can get him over to the store to play a couple songs. So after we bought it, I uh, I got on the phone to record labels, to management companies. I go, I see this artist is coming through town. Any chance they'd like to come by the store, play a few songs, and sign records for people? And in the beginning, it took a lot to convince people because nobody had been doing this in the country. And you know, we're now sitting at probably around 5,000 live performances that we've done since 1989. We've had that first year. I mean, I just got on the phone and started calling, and it didn't matter if I called 20 people and only got one yes. I was just going to keep on doing it. And we had Soundgarden play here in 1989 on street date of their Louder Than Love album. We had Randy Newman do his ever only in store that year, and he was actually up there singing Happy Birthday to Music Millennium. We did Joe Strummer from The Clash's first ever in store. We did Keith Emerson from Emerson, Lake and Palmer's only in store. Uh, we pinch ourselves sometimes because the the artists that are playing here are are pretty amazing. I wrote a whole proposal to Steve Earle to try to come out from New York City and play this little record store in Portland on street date of his new record. And he did it. And he had so much fun that the next four albums that he put out, he came to Music Millennium Street Week and played the store again.
So how long have you been doing Street Week then?
Since 1989.
Since 1989. And it's still strong today, right?
Yeah, we do a lot of live music. And the reason I even brought that up, we do national artists, but we do a lot of local artists. And it's a great situation because a lot of newer artists, they can't get a club gig because there's all these other artists out there that are all trying to get the same gig. And the people that are more known are going to be more apt to get those gigs. So this is a great opportunity for them to expose their music to some of the Portland public. And another thing is we're all ages. And there's a lot of bands that play in over 21 clubs. And the younger audience doesn't get to see them. So this is a good opportunity for them. We've had national artists call us and go, hey, can we come play your store? And it's because they're playing an over 21 club in town, but they want to make sure their younger audience gets an opportunity to see them. And I tell you, it's a very intimate situation to see a live artist at Music Millennium. Uh, we, it's some of those things are unforgettable. I mean, they they're things that stay with me. People ask me what my favorite shows of all time are, and some of these performances in the store will be right up there.
And so when you came with this sort of concept of inviting these acts and like playing, one of the things I appreciate is that your concerts are also accessible. So like it's not like you're charging $350 a ticket.
No, everything is free, and you know, especially for new artists, it gives the public a chance to check them out without digging deep into their wallet. And if they like what they see, hopefully they'll buy a CD or a vinyl and support that artist. Uh, we'll take any release by any artist in town and put it in stock and try it. We'll say, hey, we'll take it on consignment. We'll pay you as they sell.
And is that something that you've always sort of done, or is that something you sort of learned along the way? Because that's such a unique aspect of a record store to have like an artist provide you with a CD or a vinyl and sell it on consignment. That's a cool, local, supportive idea.
I've done it from the very beginning. Um, it it makes it possible for artists to get things in the store. If I was to buy the product outlet right from any artist that walked in the door, I'd have a lot of dead inventory in the store. But this is an opportunity for get their product in front of the eyes and ears of the customer. And we'll ask them in most cases, hey, if you got a promotional copy of your record, leave us a copy. We'll play it in the store.
So we, in terms of like the other things that I've sort of seen as I walk through here, the concert shirts, are those from actual concerts?
No, a lot of them are just, they're licensed shirts from different artists out there, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, uh, Olivia Rodrigo. Um, yeah, they're just going to come from those licensed manufacturers of those shirts. We do have, some interesting shirts in here. And one of the shirts that sells, you know, year in, year out is a local artist that's not together anymore is Dead Moon. Um, they we sell Dead Moon shirts all the time here.
That group is on my bucket list to interview. Yeah, I'll get there someday. But yeah, another thing too that I'm curious about is because the difference between like the box sets and like the individual vinyls. Why would somebody like what is the appeal of a box set?
Uh, Box sets are each one's got its own little concept to it. A great box set has a lot of unreleased material in there that you couldn't get on the record. Um, some box sets just come out with here's all of this artist's records in a box. But if you're a fan, you probably have a lot of those records already, so there's not a lot of incentive to own that box. So unreleased material, live box sets of unreleased material, studio outtakes, uh, demos, all those kind of things. If you're a fan of a particular artist, you want to have everything you can, then one of those box sets like that is going to intrigue you.
Because like one of the things that I love of some of the bands that I'm passionate about is when you get those deep cuts. because I find like a lot of the songs that I love are not the ones that are playing mainstream radio. It's those deeper cuts where they go a little bit more experimental, where they play a little bit more with time signatures, they play a little bit more with dynamics, and those are the ones that sort of call to me as a fan of music, because like I want that little bit of a difference in the music that I'm enjoying.
Some artists, when they play live, they're a lot more free form than they are in the studio. And you get a chance, in many cases, to hear them stretch out, play their instruments a little bit more, improvise. Um, it's, it can be a great experience. Now, there are those, I've seen box sets come out with all this material that was on the cutting room floor, and some of that material probably should have remained on the cutting room floor.
Uh, and then we've been at this for about an hour now. So I guess the best way to sort of round out our conversation is, how can people find out? You know what? Before we do that, I want to back up because I want to ask a very important question. Because as you pull up to this location, you can't help but appreciate the artwork that's all around the building.
we have
How
a
did that come to be?
we have a great store artist. Her name is Haley Cassatt. She paints all our window displays. Whenever we do a live music thing in the store, there's a window display out there for that artist. Sometimes we get too many artists playing in a month, and there may be two artists in the same window display just to get that message out. And she does a really incredible job with that. But um, a few summers ago, I took a wall underneath the office back by the parking lot and goes, Haley, how would you like to do a mural? And she was like so excited about this. And we made a list of artists that would potentially go on the wall. And the list was about 80 long, and we had to cut it down to about 20. And everybody on this list were artists that were no longer with us. So the Jimi Hendrix, the Janis Joplins, the Princes, David Bowies of the world. So we had that up for a couple of years, and I came back to Haley, and we have this big wall along the back of our building that's just beige. And, it really showed up as beige after we had that mural on the side building. And I go, Haley, how would you like to use this whole back wall as a canvas and continue that? And we made another list, and, cutting it down was really hard to do to the artists that were on there. And we have some local people on there, like Fred Cole from Dead Moon, Elliott Smith, um, Justin Towns Earl, who lived just a few blocks from the store, who was the son of Steve Earle. And um, then you have a collective back there of amazing artists on the wall. And we still have a list of artists we would love to paint on a wall if we had another wall to paint on.
And so I guess the last question for this interview is where can people go to find out like what shows, like get more information about this place? Like what is the best source of information about what's going on here?
Um, you can go to our website to see a list of in-store performances and events that we got coming up. Um, you can You can sign up for the email newsletter. We send out an email newsletter twice a week, and it'll tell you about upcoming shows, upcoming releases that are coming out. Uh, every Thursday, we send out an email to let everybody know what's coming out on Friday and the events that we have coming up for the next few weeks. Every Monday, we send out an email. And you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We post a lot of things there. And especially on Instagram and Facebook, um, there's things that will come up, once in a while we're posting, hey, we just got a big used record collection here. Come on down and see what's there. And a lot of times, these listening parties we do, we'll coordinate them with the record labels. We may not be able to announce them till 4 or 5 days before the event. Uh, so that's a that's a great way to find out about what's going on here. And we try to work with record labels to get artists to sign things, and we'll do giveaways. It might be an enter to win contest, or it might be, hey, we got this artist to sign 10 album flats. First 10 people that come down on Friday, pick up this record, you're going to get an autograph flat. Um, Again, we think from a music fan's point, what would be cool?
And then the last question that I have would be about like if you could think of one or two bands or albums that aren't widely known that you love.
Oh, there's too many of those. I think half my record collection are those records that never sold. Yeah, there's kind of a inside story that if I ever passed away, and if whoever walks into my record room there, one person may go, "Oh, we hit the jackpot." Another person may walk in and goes, "Oh, we're gonna haul all this stuff to Goodwill." But let me think of a couple classic records. Well, my top 5 artists of all time: The Kinks, Spirit, Mott the Hoople, Frank Zappa gets in there, and a band nobody knows about called the Sensational Alex Harvey Band. And you know, if I was to pick an album by the Kinks that people should pick up or know about, because it's so classic, the Kinks or the Village Green Society is one of those. They have other records like Arthur that's pretty amazing. Spirit, a family that plays together stays together, was an interesting band from LA that kind of combined some jazz elements into rock. Randy California started in the band as a 16-year-old guitarist, and he actually got a little bit of mentoring by Jimi Hendrix. Um, Randy's father owned a club called the Ash Grove in LA, and all these old blues and folk artists, they would play there, and a lot of them would come over to his dad's house after the show, and so Randy got exposed to all these things. Now, Randy's stepfather, Ed Cassidy, he was the drummer in Spirit. So you had all these, you know, from 16 to 20-year-olds in the band, and you had this 40-some-year-old father playing drums and, with a shaved head and everything. And it was quite interesting, but the music is amazing.
Well, Terry, thank you so much. And I'll end the podcast the way I always end the podcast, folks. Be kind. We all live on the same planet. We breathe the same air, and this world would be just a little bit better if we treated everybody with a little kindness and respect.
Good
Terry,
message for the world.
thank you so much.